Brad Thomson, ladies and gentlemen.
How's it going?
Thank you so much for coming out here, man. I appreciate the drive, and I'm very excited for this episode.
Hey, man, when you asked me, right away, I figured we had to make it happen.
So first things first, obviously, it's not almost like every generation where a podcast topic starts like this, but we're hopefully coming off a post-pandemic right now.
Yeah.
So I guess I have to ask you, how has your experience the last 3 months? What has changed for you, and what did you maybe, grow in? And sometimes a lot of people took this opportunity to grow. I played video games, so I'm not even fucking afraid to say it. So,
Nothing wrong with that, man.
Yeah. So, what was your experience like for that?
It's a little bit interesting. With me, my work wasn't necessarily affected. A lot of changes happened. I was working out of town at the time, so a lot of new protocols and stuff were happening. But just so happened right at the exact same time as the pandemic hit, our job got delayed. So I was actually at home anyways, like non-pandemic related, but it was right at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I took about a month and a little bit off anyways. It was more interesting with my girlfriend slash spouse. She runs her own business up in Edmonton, so it was kind of scary because a lot of small businesses shutting down during the pandemic and stuff like that, right? They actually found a way to make it work for them decent, and they ended up like doing really well, like staying really busy, which was good. That was like the biggest worry when everything shuts down and all of a sudden it's like, man, I gotta pay bills.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it wasn't so bad. And then me, I just took the time off to I've been taking guitar lessons and stuff like that. So just working on my playing chops a little bit, brushing up on stuff, and even just like physically just working out a lot and stuff, staying in shape for hockey. I play a lot of hockey and stuff. So, I don't know, just making the most out of the time to stay in as good a shape as you can be, I guess, both musically and physically.
So then real quick, all family was safe then? Everything was good there? That's good.
Yeah.
It's so awesome to get you in an experience like this, just because from seeing you live so many times, it's, Brad's such a humble, nice, quiet guy, and you get on that stage, you're loud, you're screaming, you're everywhere, and it makes up for, I wouldn't say a void, but maybe for not having like a fourth member in a three-piece there. Like you really just make up for it where you guys don't need one. What was like the decision maybe going into it? Was there ever a time there was 4 members in Black Friday, or?
Not in Black Friday. The band formed, we used to be Oceans on Fire.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Yeah,
You
we actually played Loud as Hell one year as Oceans on Fire.
You have that one story. You have that awesome music video with all the missing and stuff like that. Oceans on Fire. Yes,
that was the first music video I had actually tried to make at the time, which was cool. But yeah, it was one of my old friends who was the guitarist in Oceans on Fire. Like, we grew up back like I'm dating myself, but like in the early 2000s, right? Is when we were kind of growing up, and we had all of our bands. Like we grew up in Sherwood Park, so the Compromise, my band was Timeless. The other band was Anchored Soul, which was kind of like a death metal band around then, and we all played big like festival place in Sherwood Park. We used to rent it out all the time. Huge venue, like 700 people in that venue. We always used to play there. Kept in touch over the years, and that guitarist Dustin out of that Anchored Soul band actually asked me if I'd come and jam with them, and that's kind of how that started. He decided that he wanted to kind of go his own way and do his own music and stuff, so we kind of split that up. And then the three of us, me, Matt, and Monk at the time, our bass player, just figured, well, let's try a few jams and see what it's like with 3 of us. And if it's, if there's definitely something missing, if it doesn't work, then we'll retool it. And right away, like first jam, it was like, you know what, it doesn't really feel like there's anything missing. It feels pretty full. It feels like a decent band. So let's just keep it as is, because the chemistry is really good between us. So it's weird bringing in another member, because it's like being in a band is like being in a relationship with a bunch of dudes. You know what I mean? And like it's always, you're almost more leery about like another person's personality, like depending on if everybody can get along well. Like everybody's, occasionally you're gonna have differences of people and stuff, but it's always finding that like nice balance of like, a good working environment with other people that you get along with, and that you can create with. To being creative with people is kind of, it's a weird experience too, right? Like you got to be like kind of humble. You got to like kind of be able to work as a team. And sometimes some people are like really like strong headed and like, and that doesn't work so good in like a dynamic of a band sometimes. So we had that chemistry. We just kept it 3 and it kind of worked. Sorry, that's a very long answer.
No, that was great. That was great. It's awesome because you are right. Like when we see you live and everything, if I wasn't like watching you guys, I would think it's a 4-piece, right? You guys do it very well. And also what I like is listening to your recordings and live. I notice like, so when you are 3-piece, when you're recording, how much do you maybe try to record like a second guitar? Because only just being 3-piece, you can only play the one live. Or do you guys ever like have thought about maybe a backing track of a rhythm, or like, I'm not saying you guys need it at all.
Oh no,
you don't,
not
right?
at all.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, so. No offense at all. No, when we record it, like especially our first couple records, there's not a ton of like solos and stuff like that on there. There's a couple leads and stuff, but nothing too major. And usually excuse me, there's for something like that, we'll usually put like a rhythm guitar behind it just to make it seem full. But for the most part, we kind of, it's almost incorporated into how we write, just to make it so that it works really well with a 3-piece. On this newest single that we just recorded, there's definitely some parts that are some nice melodies going on while the rhythm's going on underneath. So I'm kind of almost thinking about how I want to pull that off live. If I want to even like maybe put that into like that melody into a pedal or something, and then be able to play that while we're jamming the rhythm part of that or something. But yeah, you almost write around it, but at the same time, I'd kind of wreck my own rules, and we're kind of going outside that now a little bit. So
I'm gonna get this right off because I got you here, so I'm gonna say it. It's kind of funny. So when I seen you guys in Calgary many years ago, you didn't have the original bass player there, and you're saying, yeah, he's just standing in. 3 years later, he's still playing with you guys. What's going on? Like, he's a member, right?
Yeah, Jeff is a member.
Okay,
Jeff is a childhood friend. Kind of grew up in that same kind of group of bands that we'd played with, and we stayed really good friends throughout the years. Our original bass player, Eric Monkman, we still love him to death, and we still talk to him all the time and hang out occasionally there. But he was going through a rough time, a bunch of personal stuff that he had to kind of step away from music and step away from the scene and everything, which is great. He had to work on stuff himself. And so when that all happened, we had planned a tour for our Darker Days record, and we had all these dates planned, and we're like, shit, we don't have a bass player now. This didn't really work out how we were planning on it, right? So I put the call into Jeff, because Jeff, he was the guitar player for Juliet Ruin for a while when they originally started off. And yeah, he was out of that band, and he was just kind of like doing his own thing, right? A couple little projects here and there. Called him up, was like, hey man, like we're hitting the road in 2 weeks. Like, is there any way you can learn our set and just like hit the road with us? And he was like, no hesitation. He was like, yeah man, like for sure. It was great. And just like since then, we're kind of like playing it by ear. Like we've been pretty honest with each other and about it. Like Jeff is definitely a guitar player by trade, but he's just like super passionate about music and loves music theory and stuff like that. Like he's actually a really knowledgeable musician. But we talked to him about it. Like, look man, like it's kind of the ball's in your court right now. Like we get along so well, like the chemistry with each other, like the brotherhood, like the camaraderie is really good with us and stuff. So like if you were still cool playing bass and we have fun writing with each other, even though like we have a lot of very different influences and stuff like that. But, like we just kind of put the ball in his court and said, look man, like if you're good with this and having fun, then let's just keep it going. And he was like, yeah, no, like we work well together, and he was stoked about it. So he's just kind of in, right?
I can tell that chemistry just from watching you guys. I love how much, he smiles, and I can tell, maybe inside jokes between you guys. You guys will give each other a stare and then like laugh and stuff. And that goes a long way from, like I hate to, say anything, but when you see a band and they all like, they could sound perfect and so tight, but if they're just standing there, just ripping super fast, I would prefer to see a bunch of guys have a lot of fun on stage, and you guys just capture that so well.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
What I loved about that show is that was Darker Days release, but I know you guys were like a 1 day delay on the actual album there.
Yeah.
So you guys played the show and it was like right after it got released.
Yep.
The super cool thing is I vividly remember you guys playing Nothing Comes From Nothing. And then when I heard it the next day, I was like, that's what they played live there. What's so cool about that song is, in a way, it's kind of different from all your other ones. It feels very, kind of like anthem-y with the whole drum fills and everything. And it's a little bit longer. I also just kind of want to get into, the writing process of that song. I love the whole album, but that song is
sure, man.
I love that song. So
that song is kind of my baby a little bit. Not that it's like particularly super, super important to me, but like I actually wrote that at the very end of Oceans on Fire.
Oh, okay.
We actually started jamming that as that band a little bit. And our guitarist at the time, Dusty, he wasn't super stoked on it just because he had a million ideas that he wanted to do in his direction. So we didn't really like go super hard on it or anything. And the band kind of disintegrated right after that. So we just kind of picked it up and took it into Black Friday. The guys really like the riff. Jeff loves the riff because it doesn't start on, it's not based around like we tune down to drop C is generally our general tuning. So that song is not based on drop C. We play in like the A for that. So it's just something a little bit different. Like instead of starting on that low note and everything's based around that C, it's a little bit different. So it kind of jumps out at you because it like key wise, it's a little different. But on top of that, just like it's got almost like a little bit of a thrashier kind of rhythm that starts it off and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't know. The whole meaning behind that song and stuff like that too is just like, it's almost like you literally the title, Nothing Comes From Nothing. You get whatever you're willing to put into something is what you're going to get out of it. And if you're not willing to, if you lose interest in something, if you're not willing to put in work, you're not going to go anywhere with anything.
Well, I love the one line, I'm too young to take this fall.
I'm too numb.
It's okay. Sorry.
Yeah, but still.
Yeah, I just love that, especially when you do it at the end of the second chorus where you just have it hanging there.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love that song.
Thanks,
the whole
man.
album's
Thanks.
really good. So, Last Loud as Hell, when I was talking to
that's when Matt had his busted ankle.
Yes, so I was talking to Matt there, and we were just obviously talking Black Friday. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm really excited. Obviously, with the pandemic, I know everything, slows down. But he says, I'm really excited to, push for, new stuff. Want to be very active and, da-da-da-da. So I know you guys recorded the new single. Is this the first single with Jeff, like in the writing process or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and the first single the first time that he played bass for us on a record.
Oh, okay.
Which is cool. Yeah.
What was, did you guys have this, plan to write and record the single before pandemic, or was it something that, hitting you guys like, okay, we have maybe a little bit of time or?
No, it definitely happened before. It was kind of one of the things where I had a bunch of riffs kind of put together for this song. And it was kind of like Diego, who we recorded with. Normally, for our first two records, we recorded with Quinn Krasankiewicz, who is the guitarist for Royal Tusk.
Okay. That's awesome.
And he's so good and he's amazing. We usually record with him, but we've had some friends and a lot of people in the metal scene been doing a lot of records with Diego, who is the guitarist for Eye of Horus, right? And he had an opening and he just put it out there on his social media. He's like, look, guys, I've got an opening for if somebody wants to come down and do a single, just get at me, let me know what you got, and then I'm going to pick one project and we'll do it. And I didn't even have the whole song done. I just had like a bunch of the riffs together and like kind of a loose structure of sort of what I thought it would go like together. And I just messaged him with it. And just so happened he'd seen us live at our last show about a month before. And he was kind of stoked on our performance. I don't think he'd seen us much or heard us much before then. So it kind of worked out. And he was like, yeah, man, I'd love to do the recording with you guys. And we kind of jumped in there. It was a really good experience working with him. When we go and record, we like to, like me and Matt, especially because we kind of been doing it together for a little bit. We really look at it like we want to work with a producer, not just like, these are our songs. This is how it is. You go in there and hit record and we're in charge. It's more like when you work with a producer who really has a great ear for songwriting, especially, I'm a sucker for like really good songwriting,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what the genre. And when you work with a producer with that, it's amazing what an outside set of ears can do and say, why don't you guys try switching this part? Why don't you guys cut this down? This drags on too long. Why don't you guys try this?
Mm-hmm.
And then you try these few things, and all of a sudden it breathes like new energy and life into your song, or like it helps the flow of your songwriting so much, and you start learning so much about like your own songwriting.
Mm-hmm.
And Quinn is like that. We work with Quinn in that kind of capacity, and Diego was excellent like that.
Mm-hmm.
I went in there telling him that I wanted somebody to help me produce this and
Mm-hmm.
like work on me to make the song as good as it possibly could be. And he was great to work with, man.
It's crazy, you know, hearing about the songwriting, especially when you say, you know, I actually had like kind of the bass for Nothing Comes From Nothing way back in the day.
Yep.
Which is also interesting because like for your first two Black Friday albums, like the core is the same, but you could tell some like involvement there. Like, so when, you know, recording the next album or something, is there anything like you try to do comparable to, you know, older records, or is it just, you know, always fresh, just what you're feeling? Or
I'm kind of weird when it comes to writing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes, and I think a lot of creative people, when they're doing sort of like creative stuff, are the same way. I'm kind of my own worst enemy with a lot of stuff sometimes, where I really worry about the quality of what I'm putting out, if it's good enough, if it's, you know. So I definitely have a style for my writing and stuff like that anyway, but when we went, for example, to do our second record, Darker Days, certain stuff was just feeling kind of like we've done it before, or like it felt the same, too much the same, and it makes you feel uninspired. So what you start doing is, and what I started doing is playing around with weird chords that I wouldn't usually use, like more dissonant chords, to really nail down a feeling, right? Instead of just hammering on a root note and maybe some notes, you know, some nice notes in between, or like riffing on some power chords that sound good thrown together, and maybe like a Phrygian kind of mode that's a really metal sounding mode, which I mean I kind of stick with anyway, but you can really zone in on a mood and a feel when you really start playing around with your chord structures and what chords you're using. You can really start getting some interesting stuff that sounds completely different than, say, just the bass root note of the chord that you're doing. And I did that with that record, and it started breathing like right away, like new life into these songs that kind of reignited my spark for writing some interesting stuff, right?
Yeah. So your clean vocals, was there a time where you like, have you always been able to sing, or, you know,
Yep.
have you?
Yeah, I've always been like, when I started out, I was super influenced by Nirvana when it started. And I think that's what started the scream and clean stuff, because I loved that, you know, that juxtaposition between the two. I love and especially with grunge and stuff, a lot of that, I'm a real sucker for like, music's always got to have like a real good feel to me, right? Like, so like a sadder sounding melody or something that really pushes a feeling, and then you juxtapose that with like a really angry scream that like comes from somewhere, not just a scream because it's a scream, but like something that has something behind it, and that usually is a really powerful combination. That's also why I really loved Korn. When they, you know, their early records were just like, they blew my mind at the time when I was a kid, you know, growing up and stuff. But yeah, stuff like that I'm super influenced by.
What would you classify Black Friday as? Metalcore, or
Kind of like, I'd say we are metalcore probably, but at the same time, if you put on a metalcore playlist and listen to it, we do not sound like any of those bands.
Correct, yeah.
Right? So, and same thing with like music festivals like Loud as Hell, for example, or like, you know, any of the bills that we get put on, we don't sound like any of the other bands that are there. But at the same time, we're not like tech death, and we're not like, you know, like we're not usual metalcore, and we're not hardcore, and we're not, you know, we're just kind of, we got a weird influence. And I think that maybe some of that influence is maybe a little bit of the grunge that I like, that kind of comes in, and just, I don't know, just the whole of our influences and the variety of sounds that we pull from kind of set us apart a little bit, I guess.
What was the so this is gonna be a two-parter. What was the decision on completely laying to rest Oceans on Fire and going into Black Friday? And then what was maybe the inspiration on Black Friday? Because you guys got a day of the year dedicated to you, right?
I was really upset at the time when
Mhm.
Dusty decided to leave.
Mhm.
He actually, I mean, we're still really good friends with Dusty,
Mhm.
but and at the time actually ended up getting into a bit of a, it was just like brotherly fighting a little bit between him and Matt, our drummer,
Mhm.
that kind of, I think it was like boiling under the surface for a little bit with Dusty where he wanted to do his own thing.
Mhm.
And then it was just like one blow up. And then he decided, no, that's it. I want to do my own thing. And I was really upset at the time because we had just opened for Soulfly. We
Mm.
played loud as hell. We
Mhm.
kind of had like a little bit of
Momentum
momentum
going
going. It was,
there.
things were going good. You know, we were getting ready to do like a second record. We had some stuff going, and then he's just like, "No, I'm walking away." And
Yeah.
man, I was so upset at the time. So when we decided that we were just going to continue on, the three of us made the decision. Well, we got to kind of start over because Oceans on Fire, when it started, was kind of Dustin's. He kind of put us together
Mhm.
and tracked everybody down and got everybody into it. It kind of was his brainchild at the time, right?
Mhm.
So it didn't feel right to continue on as Oceans on Fire. So when I started with Black Friday, I was like extremely motivated when we started. I'm like, I want to write some killer stuff. I want to get a single out now. I
Mhm.
want a really good video for it. I want to try to make a splash and pick up and get us back to up where we were when we left off with those Oceans on Fire, like right away.
Mhm.
So that kind of pushed me at the time to do that.
So what was the inspiration behind the name Black Friday?
Uh, Actually, kind of Edmonton-ish. It kind of
Okay.
worked out with like the history of Edmonton. You have the tornado that
Mhm.
happened there, right? And that was, anybody who lives in the Edmonton area knows it's known as Black Friday.
Mhm.
When that F4 tornado in '89, I believe it was, ripped
80,
through.
yeah. There was just the anniversary was not too long ago, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
ripped through and just absolutely devastated big chunks of the city.
Mhm.
We know a lot of, like, my uncle was pinned against a bunch of equipment at work when the tornado ripped through his work. Like, we
Jesus.
have friends that their parents died in that tornado. So I
Jesus.
mean, it's kind of like almost like a little bit of an homage, just an homage, if you will,
Yeah.
to our city, I guess. And the name sounds kind of metal too.
Mhm.
In hindsight, it was kind of lame also, though, because if you punch Black Friday into anything, you just get a million things for American savings and sales and stuff, or
Mhm.
Walmart fights. So it kind of,
Yeah.
you bury yourselves a little bit in that algorithm. So in hindsight, maybe,
Yeah.
but it's still kind of a cool name. We still dig it. So
How long has Black Friday officially been a band for then?
I guess probably about 3 years now or something like that, or coming up on 4 years. I don't know, man.
That's
Time's
crazy.
passing.
That's
Time's
crazy.
passing really quickly. I think it's 3 years is what it is, or something like that. But
Hmm.
yeah.
So this new single coming out then that you guys recorded, what makes you so excited for it? And then maybe what's like similar, maybe different? Like, are we going to be able to expect, the same kind of Black Friday for the new single or?
Yeah, definitely. It's still unmistakably us.
Hmm.
It's still heavy screaming parts,
Hmm.
with decently cool riffs,
Hmm.
that are, everything we play is kind of based around, everything I write is kind of based around, if I'm in the pit and this happens, do I want to punch somebody?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So if that's kind of like my litmus test, right? So that's definitely all in there. We have a cool breakdown that kind of is very punchy, and even the subject matter, we're kind of stoked on, not necessarily the background of it, but just to shed light. I ended up writing this song. I have a really good friend out of high school, and her niece ended up getting killed in a crosswalk. She got hit by a drunk driver who tried to flee
Jesus.
in Edmonton, which is rough. She's a
Hmm.
16-year-old girl just coming home from a friend's place, and it's a super sad story. The guy that hit her is a lawyer who, like you'd think like a more respectable member of society, that
Yeah.
and apparently he's had multiple drunk driving convictions in his past, and he was driving drunk, tried to flee the scene after hitting her, and an off-duty cop thankfully was there, flagged him down and held him accountable, but he's still delaying everything in the courts and stuff right now, and their family doesn't really have closure on it. It's like just a brutally sad story and set of circumstances. So I felt compelled to write something about it, I guess.
Do you have a single named? Like, do you have a name yet?
Yeah, it's called Chloe.
Chloe. Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Do you have a ETA for like a release date then, or?
Sort of. We've got the music video mostly shot for it. We're trying to finish our last few pickup shots for it. So soon, but I've got a couple delays because I kind of smashed up my drone a little bit when we were trying to shoot some other parts of the video, and it's in for repair, waiting for it to get back so I can finish the video. God damn it.
I don't want to get like, you know, you don't have to, you know, release any information on the single, but the music video, how much is it like, what's your style for it? Just, you know, with it being such an emotional song and everything, right? You know, what was the approach of how to do this music video for something like that?
It's
like without you don't,
yeah,
I don't
no,
want you to explain the
totally.
music video, right? Because I
Absolutely.
give it a surprise, but
it's it was really difficult for me, especially this one. A lot of times we'll pick out kind of I'll write based off like circumstances that are really sad or unfortunate or cruel or things like that to kind of like base songs off of. So I mean, we've done it in the past, but this one specifically, you know, the family and stuff like that. So treading a line of what's respectful, what's not pushing things too far, but still giving a really good message. It's a really tough line to walk, right? And I lost some sleep over that, just trying to, how am I going to show this? And just, you're walking a tightrope on that, right? Because you want to get the point across that this was brutal, but at the same time, you don't want to be gratuitous about it. You want to be, like I say, very respectful about it, but it's at the same time portray that message. So yeah, I had to put a lot of thought into that, and I'm still, you know, you tread kind of lightly, but you want to tread deliberately. So
man, I'm excited to see this. I really am. So then going in real quick to backtrack into recording of it, your old bass player, Monk there, did a lot of vocals for you guys.
Yes,
what's Jeff's, you know, involvement with vocals now?
None. Yeah. That was a big change for us. That was actually one of the things that we were kind of, you know, we were a little, kind of hesitant about with Jeff. Like, Jeff fit like a glove immediately. Like when we stepped into play, because we get along so well, and you know, playing with Jeff is easy. But that was one dynamic that we do miss from the band a little bit, is having extra vocals. Plus it, when we're on the road and stuff like that, it's a lot less taxing on my voice. Yeah. You know, having to take over, especially when we were doing songs from the first record that are a lot of screams that normally I wouldn't have to do. All of a sudden I'm having to do two parts. It's a lot, but we've kind of again adjusted our writing a little bit for it. But yeah, Jeff at the present time, he doesn't, but I mean, who knows? Maybe in the future he can find his inner scream. I don't know.
One thing I love about your overall work is the music videos and stuff you do. You know, you have an eye for, you know, photography, videography. That's super cool. Before we get into that, though, I've noticed a lot of the live shows you do and everything. Your wife, I'm just going to call her your wife.
Yep, that's good. Okay. We've been together 20 years.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. Your wife, sorry, does a lot of your live shoots, like, you know, pictures and everything, and it looks great. Did you like? Did she always have that eye for photography before? Or is that, you know, kind of something you maybe gave her help in or anything, just for your live shoots and whatnot?
She's always owned her own businesses as we were growing up, and she's just got a really good eye for design and stuff like that. So when it comes to photos, she's really good at composing shots. She's got a good eye of a good feel of kind of like what looks decent and what is just a boring picture. So the technical side of photography, she wasn't too you know, proficient in at first, but yeah, just literally get her helping out, kind of teach her, show her the reins on the camera a little bit, just to, get her to use that skill to kind of help us out, because she's with us on the road anyways a lot. So
doing the merch and everything, it's awesome, though.
right?
Yeah,
So having really good quality live shots of when you're on the road, I think, is pretty valuable. So it was a no-brainer to get her to harness that skill to help us out.
I do remember you saying the Oceans on Fire one was the first music video you shot. You're
Yep.
saying, was there an experience before that made you want to do that? Like, did you have a bad music video shoot before? Like, just not from yourself filming,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
but someone else that made you want to do that?
No. It was kind of originally, basically, I've always liked the idea of getting into photography and stuff like that, so that I could literally do that for my own creative purposes in my band. Was kind of, because it's cool, right? When you're writing, you're definitely going for a feel. You're going for something, and if you can enhance that by really putting a visual behind it that really hammers home what you're trying to get at musically, I've always thought that was a super cool, powerful thing. So I've got a lot of friends that kind of grew up in like the cinematography kind of communities a little bit. My friend Tom Guinea, he actually shot a really ridiculous cop show that is literally called Cop Show. And that was kind of my first experience in filmmaking, and it was just really cool. He's got such a good eye. I really respect him as a cinematographer, because he's just got that eye. He knows how to portray a feel or a mood, whether it's just ridiculous and stupid, or just really serious and moody, and just a really good feel. So working with him a little bit, he had me out to stand in and act on his cop show, which was ridiculous, but just it's hilarious. I swear to God, if you watch it, you just crack up. It's just so dumb. But anyways, he that kind of opened my eyes to it a little bit, and saying that, you know what, I can really probably pull this off. Might as well try. And I started doing a lot of short films and stuff like that, kind of honing my skills a little bit, working with actually Michelle's little sister, because she was into like doing filmmaking and stuff. And for a while we were doing a weekly kind of film competition in Edmonton at Metro Cinema, where we'd send out a short film, and monthly. Weekly was a lot. No, it was like a monthly thing. We do every month, and that was a great way to start figuring out visuals and how to really hone your craft at it a little bit. So I'd been doing that for a while by the time I got into music videos, and then kind of ran with that, and it's really helped me kind of shoot, really get the looks I'm shooting for, kind of deal.
What program do you use? Oh, actually, sorry, before that, what program did you use at the beginning? And then, like, what program do you use now to do all the editing? Not even for visual effects? Like, are you Adobe?
No, I shoot on Final Cut Pro.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I've heard lots about that, actually.
It's Mac only, so if you're PC, it's not really an option. I was doing visual effects and stuff in After Effects.
Yep.
But and I still kind of do. I actually took After Effects off my computer for now, because I haven't had a lot of projects that have warranted a ton of VFX work lately. But yeah, if I need to, that's usually my go-to, is After Effects.
How was the learning curve? Like,
shitty.
Was it?
Yeah. For it depends. For Adobe, it's brutal.
Oh yeah.
It's difficult software to use and learn. Final Cut is very, very easy and way more user friendly as far as just jumping in and doing edits.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if you're starting to do more complicated things, I mean, any piece of software, you kind of have to learn a little bit if you're doing multicam shoots or whatever you're trying to pull off. But as far as like just jumping in and starting, Final Cut was great for an easy editor to use. And learning After Effects sucks.
Yeah. I've spent probably like 40 hours trying to learn After Effects, and I'm still not even close to anything.
It's tough, man.
I love Premiere Pro. Big fan of Premiere Pro, actually.
I never really used it. I've had a few people, my friends, that have tried to start using it and got mad and stopped right away. But having said that, the things that you can do with the software is almost infinite, because there's just so many features and things. It's just the layout and stuff like that. It's almost like it's the same thing with Photoshop, where you just kind of, you got to learn where everything is and how the software works. It's not necessarily like just like, oh, it should obviously be like this. It's not. Adobe stuff just doesn't generally work like that.
So when you get approached to film a music video, maybe how much is your creative side maybe to theirs, and like is it easier when they come in like with the big vision? I'm assuming you kind of try to be like the producer, like when you go in and record a song, right? It's like, hey, it would be nice, to have a little bit of extra vision. Have you ever had that where you're allowed to put more creative, and have you ever had people like, I want this or something like that?
It just depends. I just go into it first thing, like when a band approaches me. I just right off the hop, just want to have a meeting and just listen to the song. Immediately when I listen to a song, I get a feel for the mood, and I can picture off the top of my head what that mood is, what would work really well with that song, and then if they have a theme or like a storyline that they want to do, that's really cool. I can help steer them in a direction that is feasible to do on their budget, that we can actually pull off. That's another thing too, is if you're going to pull something off, you could pull it off well. I'm not really a fan of trying to bite off more than you can chew that you can't do to a high level, because as a band, you have one chance to make an impression with somebody. And if the first thing they do is click your video and it looks kind of crappy, you lost them. Right off the hop, you lost them. Even if your song is killer, you lost them.
Yeah.
The only time you can kind of get away with that is if you're doing something really funny and just ridiculous, because that plays well to like crappy quality stuff, like badly executed things kind of almost play into the joke a little bit. But if you're trying to do a storyline that's decent, man, you got to do it well.
Yeah, I recently just dove into like a little bit of research to seen this one guy kind of break down his music video, and he did a big I forget what the program was. He did like a big 3D animation of kind of getting it. Have you ever done that? And also, what's like the scouting location? Because I know you couldn't really do that unless you had like maybe a visual actual place maybe booked or in mind. So what's your preparation for that?
A lot of times when I talk to a band, we always go over budget immediately, because your budget is going to limit you and determine how incredibly creative you're going to have to be. I mean, to be fair, the level I'm working at, I'm really helping out like the kind of the small metal scene, or the small, not even necessarily metal, but the small music scene. So budgets aren't typically huge.
Yeah.
So you're always trying to work out stuff. So usually as soon as they have an idea for something and we need locations, I always tell bands that, look, if you guys can help and nail down a location that's great and free, then we don't have to pay for it. It's not in the budget. If you want a certain look, and the only way we can get that is by having to rent a place or get permission for a place that's going to ask you for a deposit or something like that, it's going to add to the budget, but maybe it's exactly what you want. So you just be super honest with the bands about what is possible, budget wise, and then we kind of go accordingly. Usually it's great to have a band that's really motivated. The first music video I worked with Dahmer's Realm, even their second one too, but right away they had a good vision of what they wanted to do. They knew what they wanted to do visually, like roughly what the theme was. They went out of their way to go and make masks. They were Addison he's an electrician. He was building lighting rigs, and they nailed down just a fucking unbelievable location. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear on this.
Oh yeah, fuck shit, cockballs.
But he nailed down just an unbelievable location. And they put in a ton of work into this, and I think that came through just awesome on film, because it, with everybody pushing together and doing as much as you can, it greatly extends what you're able to do, what you're capable to do in a music video, whereas opposed to it's just like, if they throw it on me, we can still come up with something awesome. But as one guy trying to do 10 different things at the same time, wear 10 different hats, it's you're a little more limited in what you can do, or you've got to plan it really methodically, and be able to pull it off within that budget, right? It's always a balancing act.
What's one of the proudest shoots you've done? And it doesn't even have to be a music video. Like, what's one of the proudest shoots? And maybe what's one of like the coolest? Because there's a difference between the two, right?
Yeah. Man, that's tough. There's a lot of, and the thing is I learned so much kind of on, like I've done 11 now. I've done 11 music videos. So you kind of learn something on each of them. So as you progress, you're like, oh man, I wish a couple videos ago I would have done this a little bit differently or something like that. But I mean, there's a lot of really cool things we've done. Like I was proud of the last Breaking the Silent video that I shot for those guys. It was the first time that we tried to shoot outside and at a night location. So I mean, that right off the hop produces like a ton of challenges that you have to overcome. And I thought the video turned out quite well. It was also one of the first videos I've done that it's just performance end of the video. I'm not necessarily a big fan of just performance videos. If I do it, they've got to be like you say, a very entertaining band, right? If they're just kind of like a proggy band where the guy's just like standing there looking at his fretboard, it's not a very enticing video, you know. And when you could draw 2 lines around his shoes and they don't leave that space for the whole video, you got to have, if a band is really charismatic and really good at presenting that energy, then it's a little bit easier. So I was pretty proud of how that one turned out, because I thought even with just a performance video, it was a really well done video and a cool theme. Cool videos like that Dahmer's Realm video was really cool.
Both of them were awesome.
Yeah, they both turned out great. The first one, just that location was so cool. And at the same time, though, there's other music videos, like the first Juliet Ruin video I did, where we didn't have many options for a location, but we stepped in and we made it cool. We stepped in and we turned it into something that was a lot higher production value than what we were given. And we did that with a couple of videos too, where I'm always proud of that, when you jump in, and if I took you to the location that we shot at and you looked at it, you'd be like, this is where you shot, this is super lame. But then you see the video and it actually comes across pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of those shoots too.
Have you been able to, just because I want to say 3 Loudest Hells ago, when All Else Fails played, I actually was able to scout out a location for the music video and like help behind the scenes and everything. So it's really cool, you know, seeing Barrett with all his, you know, feedback and music videos. Have you ever been able to, you know, see maybe what other people are doing in your community and take inspiration? I know, like you said, you took a lot of inspiration and learning from that cop show. Have you been able to, you know, see any more of that, or?
I mean, whenever you see somebody do something that's really creative and interesting, it catches your eye, whether it's at a local level or whether it's on a big level. Now, on a big level, it's a bit of a catch because they have big crews, they have crazy budgets, so they can pull off a lot of stuff. But that doesn't mean that you can't take the ideas of what they're doing and run with it on a scale that is applicable to what you're doing. Like you mentioned Barrett, like me and Barrett are friends. I've worked with Barrett shooting one of their live shows for them. He's a super good guy. He's got a really good eye too. He does really good work. He's come out with a lot of really great music videos. At the same time, my buddy Tom, who did that cop show, he shot, I don't know if you heard of the band Norel.
Okay.
But he shot their first kind of single. He was the director of photography for it. And as soon as I shot it, I was like, or as soon as I saw it, I didn't know who shot it. And I was like, this looks really, really good. This looks like something Tom would have done. And sure enough, see the credits, and he was the director of photography on it. Sometimes, you know, when you see somebody that just has a great eye for stuff and is really good at pulling something off, like it comes through, and it's kind of inspiring.
I actually have 3 of your music videos you shot here that I just wanted to go over real quick, maybe say some behind the scenes. It's funny, I have Dahmer's Realm #1 on there.
Yep.
Because also when looking at your music videos, I can really tell like you have a style, right? I like how you do the close-ups of the face, and like you said, you have a story with a lot of them as well. Like you said, there's Dahmer's Realm from the Grave. Also, when I post editing, I'll actually be able to put the music video on the screen. So, but yeah, this one is super awesome. And also, I wanted to ask you what it was like working with a set of extras that big as well. Like, I don't know if you've probably worked with maybe that many extras on a single video shoot. Or...
I have, but more on like the short film side of stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Where we've had a ton of people and trying to organize. But generally, people are pretty good. I try to explain to them right off the hop that filmmaking is boring. it's slow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you've ever been on a set of a film set, it's a really, you sit around and wait for a long time while everything gets set up, and you make sure, and then you get called up to do your thing. Cool, that was great. We're gonna set up for another shot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go and sit and wait for longer. As long as you know. And I didn't know a lot of the people, the boys in Dahmer's Realm, actually pulled together most of those extras, but they were all just like super helpful, super patient when we were doing our other things. They were, you know, they weren't in the way or anything. They were just chilling, and everybody was really good to work with there.
I love the whole thing because you got to just, this one is really cool because it's a very horror element story, right? And that's what's so cool. And I bet you even this was probably hard, just setting up the lights that way. And, you know, I've even just like setting everything up. Absolutely. And even how you go slow motion here into the fast motion and everything, you know, you always have that in vision for all of this, or?
Yeah, some stuff you really plan out or you really have a good idea. I got to give Addison a lot of credit for this. Like he wired in those lights and kind of put them roughly where he wanted to around there. But I just kind of came in and shaped them a little, moved them a little, and then adjusted the rest of the set a little bit so that I know it would look the way we want to on film, and just shape the light a little bit. Like you, I mean, with being a cinematographer, like I consider myself almost more of a director of photography than I do a director, because I'm really into getting a feel visually, right? And sometimes shadows are more important than actual lights.
Oh, okay.
Where you're placing stuff, your shadow is way more important. Like even how Addison there is in half shadow, all that kind of stuff like is really deliberate and really adds to the feel. So a lot of times just shaping light and just where your shadows fall and what is lit and how much is lit, what your ratios are, like that stuff's all super important. But I love the vibe of this video.
Yeah.
The location, you walk into a location like that, it's almost hard to fail, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure you could make it kind of more lame, but like you walk in there with that great of a location, it's hard not to knock that one out of the park.
So then to ask the two amateur questions, well, this one's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
How many times did you listen to that song that day?
Oh, a billion. A billion. That shoot was probably, I think that shoot was probably like a 13-hour, 14-hour shoot, maybe, where you're listening to a 4 or 5 minute song nonstop for 14 hours, and then I go home and edit it and put 30 hours of editing in, and you're listening to it nonstop. Even though like a lot of these songs are like amazing songs, like the chorus in this song is really killer. You get tired of it after a while, because even my own songs, man, like you listen to them so much, it's like, man, oh man. But at the same time, I've kind of, at this point, I've got my editing for music videos really down to a science. So I've cut so much time out of what it takes me to actually put something like this out. So I don't get quite as sick of songs as I did in the past. But I warn bands before we shoot. I'm like, just so you guys know, you're going to be playing this song like 30 times. Make sure you bring something to drink. You're going to be dehydrated. Make sure you're ready for it, because it's going to be a long day.
And then I assume like just from obviously watching the cuts and everything, you do like a full playthrough of each individual member as well.
Yeah,
when it cuts to that, do you have multiple cameras doing it, or like?
Usually it's not in the budget.
Yeah.
I mean, because more cameras means you have more operators. It's a 50-50, right? If you have more cameras and more operators, you cut down on the time that you're actually on set shooting, right? It's for example, if I got 3 cameras, I can get my master wide, and then I can get 2 close-ups or maybe a medium close going all at the same time, and they're all perfectly in sync because they're the same takes. That cuts down on time. If you're paying a lot of money for a location, sometimes that's a smarter way to go. But generally, we don't have the budget for it, so it's just one camera, and it's like, okay, let's do it 600 times. But yeah, I always have it broke down. I have literally a shot list, and I'm like, hey, we need to get this wide. We need to get this wide in slow motion, or we need to get, your medium close, this guy. You need close-ups of this guy. You need to get super close-ups of this. And you just go through and shoot it all.
And then also, before we go to the next music video, was this one in Parasite? Was that your first time doing like a continuational story between videos?
Yeah, actually.
How was that experience?
It's pretty fun.
Yeah?
It was fun just because it's fun, but also challenging because the second one we moved locations, we moved everything. So trying to make it feel like it was a continuation, like I hope it came across. But
yeah, the diner, that was really cool. Just having all those people in there, right?
Yeah, the boys really come through with some pretty cool locations for us, and they came up with all the locations. So like huge credit to those guys. They definitely hustled pretty hard for these videos to really make them as best as they possibly can be.
Awesome. This next music video I absolutely love, and I just wanted to know the humorous side to this one, just because. Also, I just want to give a quick shout out to them. I fucking love this song.
It's a killer song.
Killer album too, by the way. I have the album on Spotify, obviously. But.
Yeah. It's digital, man. That's how it goes. I agree. I when Kent sent me this song, Kent, the guitar player from Juliet Ruin, sent me this song and said, just to get wrapping your head around what we're gonna do with this. As soon as I heard it, it was something like quite different from them. It was the first time that Jess really kind of screams. She's starting to really harness her scream, and it turned out great. Like this song, they really knocked this song out of the park. I thought it was a really good choice for a single for them.
What was the creative side? Just because if you watch the first minute and a half, it's very like serious, and then you got people coming with Oilers jerseys and stuff like that. What was the creative mind behind this?
They came to me and told me that they wanted to try to do something silly. And I said that's a cool idea, because it's almost less pressure to do something funny because everything works. If something screws up when you're trying to do something funny, it just makes it more funny half the time, right? But at the same time, we definitely talked about how we were gonna make it funny. So in pre-video talks and our previs for this, we were talking about how we were gonna do that, and we talked about maybe we'll start out with, because the song kicks in and it's that screamy verse right off the hop, like it gets right into it. So we're like, well, maybe we'll start off serious, and then we'll kind of just slowly add in a couple things that are starting to get stupid, and then by the end it's just completely ridiculous. And it's to the point that people are like, what the hell is this, what's going on? And I think we did a pretty good job of it. I think we had a lot of fun shooting it. Like the shoot was super fun. So
when you do like maybe the public scenes when you're walking down with the band and everything, is there any like maybe a little like awkwardness or anything?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely it is. You're walking in a public space with a camera. You've got people come walking down the path the other way, and they're dressed up like rock stars with their instruments walking. We're just like, okay, you guys just walk through, give us a sec, and we'll start this up again. But sometimes that's just how it goes, especially when you want a public shot like that with the band. I mean, visually it looks cool, but sometimes you just have to be patient and just be willing to be a little bit awkward in public, but it works out.
I love this music video. I really do. This one was awesome.
Nice. I was pretty stoked with how that turned out too.
And especially you totally nail it for just that first time reaction for me, right? I'm like, okay. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, that's definitely what we're going for. I think it gives maybe some of the funny moments a little bit more punch almost, because they come out of nowhere.
Yeah. This last one I want to bring up is from Black Friday, and the reason I bring this up is because I like what you said before, is how you tried to add like a storytelling into just performance. The reason I bring this one up specifically, because maybe compared to your other music videos, I thought this is one of the first ones you really added a drone element into it.
Yep.
So just kind of wanted to get maybe your creative thought behind the drone, and then I wanted to ask you who played the Scarecrow.
Okay. Absolutely. So yeah, on this one, basically I was in trouble on this one, because we recorded this and we were trying to get this music video shot for this single, so that if you're in a band, that when you try to time your releases and your singles and stuff, you're trying to hype everything up for a goal, right? If we were hitting the road, so we wanted to get a bit of word out that, about our record and get some hype up. And so people were paying attention to us a little bit, so that when you're on the road, that people are going to come to your shows. You get a little bit of momentum. Like it's all a big thing that you're trying to plan piece by piece by piece. So when we came out of the studio on this one, we realized that Monk was not going to be playing bass with us. He was not going to come out on tour. At this point, he was not even in the province. We were like, man, I've got to shoot a video and I've got to get this out in time for us to hit the road, and I don't have a bass player. What in the hell am I going to do? But I kind of really like the idea of playing with like a dream state of a guy having kind of like a scary dream and then waking up from it, and that what was haunting him in his dream is actually there. So we just kind of played with that. My buddy Daniel actually made that Scarecrow mask. He's a super talented props guy. He's man, he makes like amazing props and cool special effects things. He's unreal. Super talented artist. And basically I wanted to try to shoot, I wanted this thing to feel sort of dreamy in the dream spot. So a lot of that stuff, like putting a camera like, 80 feet above the trees or something like that, it feels kind of surreal. And especially when a guy's kind of being chased through a forest, it gives you an interesting perspective. It's still sort of panicky, but it's at the same time, it's like, in a dream, you almost have like a weird overview sometimes of like what is going on in your dream, but you don't know how you know that. So it's kind of subconsciously lends to that feel of the video sort of, right?
So for moments like this, are you screaming? Are you mouthing? How's that work? You don't have to tell
No. When we do that, I tend to like to scream because it gets the veins in your throat and it looks a little bit more real. But if you look at somebody like, for example,
that Scarecrow looks awesome.
Thanks, buddy.
Your buddy nailed that, man.
And Jeff is actually the Scarecrow in this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Jeff is the Scarecrow, the funniest, goofiest dude, and we threw him in the Scarecrow mask, and it worked great. Yeah, I mean, some shots I kind of wish I'd shot. My big regret on this is there was one or two shots that I wish the perspective was a little bit made him look bigger than he was, but still stoked about it. But yeah, to oppose that, like if you look at somebody like Courtney LaPlante from Spirit Box, when she is in a video and she's screaming, she talks it like she's singing. And that it's interesting because that gives it a completely different feel. It doesn't, it's weird because the sound is very rageful, but she looks very calm. So it's another feel. So on this one, I went for screams because I wanted the intensity, but you can definitely play with that to suit whatever mood you're going for.
What would you really give people getting into the videography world, like after do, like you said, doing about 12 shoots, so many short films, like what would your biggest advice be other than a really shitty learning curve coming up ahead?
Ooh, it is, I would say you've got to kind of know what you're going for and kind of be deliberate in what you're doing. It's tough too, because sometimes you don't learn that for a while, and especially if you just picked up a camera or you've just started shooting a band or you don't really understand how to portray a mood. And I feel like sometimes bands, even when they're writing, don't understand how to cohesively portray a feel and a mood. Sometimes like they're more about like, this is a sick riff or this is this, but it doesn't like come together and like, you know what I mean? And I feel with a video, you've got to be deliberate in that, and you got to sit down and think, okay, what am I going for? What does this feel like? This feels panicky, or this feels, like this has a certain feel. How do I visually try to portray that? And, if you're doing something that's serious, maybe practice first, or don't get super married to the idea of including it necessarily if it's your first time doing something like that, because if it comes out cheesy at all, which it might, because shooting serious stuff very convincing is difficult to do.
From actors even, right?
Actors, anything, right? Actors is really tough. It's actors are so vitally important in that too. So yeah, just know what feel the song is and how you want to visually portray that, and understand why you're doing something. Keep asking yourself, why am I doing this? A lot of bands just throw a light directly in front of their faces and they're like, okay, well, just there's a light and here's the band. Well, think about the feeling that portrays it. I mean, it's bad lighting anyways, but like think about the feeling of that is like, that gives you a very like deer in headlights, like using a flash on your phone at night when you take a picture of somebody, it's always a crappy picture.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely lends a feel, like it makes people look kind of washed out and strange. So you could use that effect to like a certain feel if you're going for it, but just like be deliberate and understand, like, is your song kind of sinister or is it kind of dark? Well, there's your hint. Maybe try to incorporate shadows and incorporate the feel for it. Is it panicky? Is the tempo really all over the place? And it's like, it kind of almost gives you anxiety. Like if you close your eyes and you listen to that song, what is the feel? What movie do you think of when you do that? And like maybe that inspires your camera motion, so that maybe you're not shooting on a gimbal. You don't want the smooth, because that gives you a very dreamy kind of feel. You want it panicky. So maybe a little more handheld with a little bit of jitter would work for this. And then you break down into like, a softer section with a melody, and all of a sudden that flows. So, okay, well, visually, I want to try to show that. Like, just really ask yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I shooting this a certain way? Instead of just like, oh, well, I'm putting a camera on a tripod, that's how I shoot. Or I'm like, you ask yourself, have a reason behind stuff, and you'll find that if you motivate what you're shooting, all of a sudden you're going to start really getting some really cool visuals that really suit what you're going for.
So when you have that visual and everything, do you always have like your main character plan for the story? If you when you add that story music video with your performance, right? Do you always have that main character in mind, or
sometimes? Usually, we'll think about that in previs. Like I say, on this last music video for us, that was tough. I had to get shooting something. I knew I was going to have to shave my awesome beard for work. So I really wanted to get a shot in before I had to shave. So we just booked and shot the performance section of that first. And then I probably almost took too much time, but I was a little bit apprehensive about this one. Like I mentioned before, because I really wanted it to be great. And just perfect. So like took the time and really thought about what I wanted to shoot for this. And then you go out and shoot it. You always plan it out. If you don't, it's kind of, it almost feels you can really miss the point of it. It doesn't feel like it fits.
Real quick before I go into this next part, then. So when I'm gonna ask again, just in case everyone maybe forgot, when is your ETA for that? And then what do you have going on for Black Friday?
I'm hoping for in the next month or month and a half, but we are a big fan, even though we can't obviously tour right now. So we've had to kind of change how we're doing stuff a little bit, but even still, we will hype it up and make sure that there's a lot of stuff leading up to the release of the single, so you won't be able to miss it.
Then you plan for album 2021, or?
I don't know what we're going to do, because if you can't tour, then you're not selling an album. So I don't know. This whole thing has really changed the way that I think about, even in a band. Like I always talk about, you want to motivate what you're doing, like visually when you're shooting a music video. It's the same thing when you're a band. You got to motivate it by something. You have to understand what you're doing before you go out and do it. So it's like, we can record an album, but we're not going to sell an album. We're not on the road physically selling CDs and shirts for this record and stuff like that. So what is our medium right now if we can't play live, and that's not really a part, and it might not be for another year or something? What is your medium? Well, I feel like we have definitely an advantage because we can show visually a cool medium and maybe bring people into our band that way and get them interested in our band. So I've almost thought about maybe having an album that is literally a bunch of singles that we throw together that have videos, and that, digital and virtual end of it is how we communicate with our fans or potentially new fans. Right? And we've kind of thrown that idea around. So maybe just doing this single, getting it out of the way, doing another single, and just keep doing different ideas and putting it out that way. Almost at this point seems like it makes more sense than just like a straight up album.
Like I said, man, I'm so excited, especially just hearing everything behind it, right? Like, I'm excited even on a little bit of an emotional level to listen to this. Seriously, like, I just can't wait to see what you guys like. I'm excited.
Nice. Thanks, man.
Honestly, got a lot of the Black Friday and all that. So I'm gonna switch gears,
Totally.
change topics.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Edmonton just got officially announced for the hub city for the playoffs there.
Yes.
So my first question is I went online this morning. I seen Max Domi is almost unfit to play, and like 5 or 8 players from Montreal Canadiens tested positive.
Did they?
Yes.
I knew that a handful of people from Pittsburgh did as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you know what? Say what you will about COVID and stuff like that, and people being like, it's not a big deal or something like that. The reason that we have the luxury to be able to say it's not that big of a deal is because we've handled it decent enough that it didn't spike here. So that is the fact that we did that is super cool. That we've got a hub city in Edmonton is super cool.
Insane.
Super cool. And even in Toronto is really cool for a city that size to have that few of, cases and stuff and contain like the virus that much to make them be a hub is super cool. So it's wicked for Canadian cities. Having said that, like a lot of the players like living in the States, Florida has 18,000 cases a day. Yeah. That is insane. Texas is getting murdered by this stuff. So it doesn't really surprise me that some players are testing positive because they are living right where it's just brutal and people aren't taking it very seriously. So I think you definitely will see that. On the flip side, did you see that Crawford? Okay, so like I'm obviously an absolute diehard Oilers fan.
Yeah, I am too. So
I absolutely diehard. Like I suffered through the decade of darkness, watching every single game. So Crawford, goalie for the Chicago Blackhawks, might not be playing. It's 2 days in and he has not reported to camp. They don't know if they haven't disclosed, but they don't know if he's injured or if he's got corona or whatever the deal is. But he hasn't reported, so if he's not in, man, I mean the Blackhawks were already going to get murdered, but Crawford was their only hope because he has the ability to steal series, and if he's not playing, they've got Malcolm Subban. So good luck.
And then so what was for the Oilers? Green opted out now. He's no longer, which we've actually, for once, it's kind of nice to say, maybe as an Oilers, we actually have a pretty deep D for once, right?
Absolutely.
It's nice to say that. But I also seen, if I'm not mistaken, was it, we just had a defenseman unfit.
Caleb Jones.
It was Caleb Jones.
Yep.
Yeah. So everyone's also seen it. I hate to be that guy, but fuck, I was glad when Hamonic opted out for the Flames there. I'm like, ha ha.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So another quick question is, obviously, I think it is, but do you think it's a big advantage for Edmonton, it being in all the way in Edmonton, like for a hub city, or do you think your mindset for them is maybe not advantage at all? Or
I think it can be for some players, like Connor McDavid obviously has a place in Edmonton. They have their homes in Edmonton, so to be at your own house every night, I think has got to be somewhat of an advantage. A little bit. It's a little bit more normalcy for those players, so it's got to help a little bit. Not only that, they're being cheered on by the city. The buzz around the city is going to be nuts. So even though they're not physically in the arena, like that kind of energy in the city is going to transfer over. Maybe not as big an advantage, of course, as if like they were actually playing a packed arena in Edmonton, but I think it does. I think it is a little bit for sure.
Especially, if they, when they win that game and he's on his way home and everyone's losing their minds, right? That's got to be a huge advantage.
Yeah,
I think.
Man, absolutely.
So another question is, with Montreal and so many of them, testing positive, do you think if one team had maybe more than half test positive and they had to drop out, they would cancel the whole thing?
I don't know if they would. I think they look at it as teams have to be responsible for themselves and how they handle the situation and how they handle their employees and stuff. So if they've put out a mandate that says, make sure you're social distancing, make sure you're doing this, make sure you're doing that, and most of their team test positive, obviously they're not following that mandate. So it's kind of like, because they didn't handle it responsibly, you kind of get punished because you didn't take it very seriously, or you didn't handle it the right way. So how important is playing in the playoffs to you?
Yeah, true. Especially if you're a team like Montreal. You guys weren't even in the playoffs fucking 4 months ago.
Yeah, right.
What are you doing testing positive?
Yeah, or even just like the health of your family too, right? Like how important is that stuff to you?
I seen Cassian's got his chops back now. Love to see that.
The pork chops are killer.
I'm super excited to see what the Oilers are going to be able to do, especially because if I'm not mistaken, what is Thanaseu a free agent after this? Or
Yes, they only
he
had him for 1
is?
year, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to see him. He's really quick, but
He's fast.
at the same time, he didn't really get a chance to like really click with the team. He kind of came when everything was already in full swing.
Yeah.
So he's kind of trying to find a spot anyways, but at the same time, like it never hurts to have a guy he's a good player. It never hurts to have a guy like that with speed that can, you never know in the playoffs. I mean, you always need guys like that.
So, what do you? What's your overall assessment of the Oilers this year? I'm a big Oilers fan, so I can keep going. So it's all good there.
Yeah. No, they played excellent. But the funny thing is like they didn't change a whole lot with the team.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing was goaltending the year before when they didn't make the playoffs, and everybody was kind of shitting on the Oilers, and they're like, "Oh, the Oilers are they had one playoff season and they suck and blah blah." Mm-hmm. Really, it was just Cam Talbot had a bad year, and they couldn't find a backup that was, going to help them out. Mm-hmm. If you took his numbers, because he had his last year in Edmonton, they were brutal, and you bring them just up to average numbers, Edmonton's in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was the big thing. And I mean, you could blame the D a little bit on it because we've had a little bit of luck with some of our young guys come up, like Bear came up and he's played excellent, right? And he fills a big role for us. And it's cool to see an Indigenous guy come up, and right away have an impact. Like that's huge for their community too, right? But he had that impact. And all of a sudden, you get Mike Smith, who's having a good year. Mikko Koskinen having a pretty good year. Mm-hmm. The goaltending's looking good, and you just add like one or two guys that are just like playing well, and all of a sudden, the back end is those goals against are way, way, way down, and Edmonton's doing great again. Like that was the big thing, I think.
Well, it was weird because the year before, Talbot broke Grant Fuhr's record with most wins and everything, right? Yeah. And like you said, the next year just wasn't having as good of a year. I was pretty happy with Mike Smith coming over just because I know even though Calgary lost first round, Mike Smith was the only reason that series wasn't any fucking worse, to be honest. Like he played really good. I was really excited for him, and I'm just glad to see Bear because I'm not even kidding. For the last like 3.5 years, I've been following Bear. Like I've known we drafted him, right? And he put up insane numbers for a defenseman in the minors. For sure. Insane. So to see him come up and finally going, it's like full circle. So yeah, let's what's your predictions then for the playoffs? Obviously, Oilers taking it home, but really, what's your prediction there?
Edmonton. Well, I mean, Edmonton's going to obliterate Chicago. Yeah, I don't think it's even close. McDavid's on a mission. Yeah. So I think it's literally, and especially coming in where it's almost like the start of the season, like training camp, almost like preseason going straight into playoffs. Goaltending is going to be huge. So whoever's got the hot hand in goaltending, that's literally who's going to win it, right? So if Smith and Mikko are playing great, I mean, Edmonton's unstoppable. But it's hard to say.
What are you saying for, let's go conference finals then? What are you going for conference finals? Who's Edmonton meeting in the conference finals?
That's tough.
Especially with the qualifying round, right? Just because, you can get an underdog that was never meant to be there and just have a Cinderella story, right?
That definitely, man, that could definitely change everything, right?
Yeah.
If it was somehow possible, well, could it be possible for Edmonton couldn't play Calgary in the conference final, could they? Because they would have to play them in the second round. Is that how it would work? Well,
yeah, I think all Alberta teams would have to win because I think in the second round it would be maybe Vancouver and Calgary there.
Yeah.
So like all Canadian teams would have to be on a roll for that to happen. Because I was predicting maybe a Vancouver, actually, Edmonton conference.
That would be pretty cool.
It would be.
It would be interesting. Well, that's interesting too. They got a really good goalie there too. And
Ferland just backed out today as well from Vancouver.
Did he?
There, yeah, he was unfit to play. I also wasn't unfit due to anything. It was health issues. He actually has like some pretty bad health issues right now. So
yeah, exactly. If you have respiratory stuff, I mean, it's or if you got a family and kids that are immunocompromised, I mean, it's almost a no-brainer that it's not worth the risk.
Yeah, we're over the Trelli thing. That's great. Thank God that's over.
Totally, man.
I hate to bring up bad memories. What was probably the worst thing about that? What was one thing you're just like, what the fuck, Trelli? Like, gotta give him props, McDavid and Draisaitl for those years though, and that signing.
That was great.
Genius.
Yeah. At the end, he started getting just ridiculous. Like, we were all kind of like, what the hell with the Taylor Hall thing a little bit.
A little bit. In a way, it made sense though.
We needed defensemen pretty bad, and Larson's solid, but like we felt like the return maybe wasn't that great for it.
Yeah.
But as it went on, and he started making just ridiculous trades, you know, getting who was it that he traded to Chicago?
I remember he did an interview. He's saying he's excited to fucking
play
bring
Edmonton,
us back.
right?
To Edmonton. I know exactly.
What's his face?
Oh my God.
Kajula.
Yes, Drake Kajula, yeah.
And he was great, and they trade him away for nothing. And then he starts trading, like he trades for Manning, and he makes these weird trades for these players that are terrible, and he's giving up players that like have more value than who he's trading for, and the players he's trading for are like not good. Yeah, it's like it was brutal. They stepped in at the right time to like kick him out because he was starting to tank the team with the weird trades he was doing. You know, like it was getting weird. Right. And not only that, it's really good to have Ken Holland in just because. It's the weirdest thing going into the start of a season where he's like, these guys are going to spend time in the American League or developing players. But like as an Edmonton fan, you're like, what? You're going to develop players? You're not going to bring them up when they're way too young and not ready to step in that role, and then they're going to fail and lose their confidence and probably wreck some of their career as they try to pick their pieces up in the minors. Like, instead, Ken Holland's actually developing players the right way. So man, that was a breath of fresh air.
Oh man, Ken Holland's such a G. Especially, you know, Detroit had like the world record for a while, being the most consistent team to make the playoffs year after year after year.
They know how to run their whole farm team, their farm system, and develop players properly.
And that was also the thing. It's not like you know, not shit on Chicago, but it's not like, you know, you had a little era where you win 4 cups in however many years, right? You know, Detroit was always on top for year after year after year, and
competitive every year.
And love the team actually, like Shanahan, Yzerman, and all of them. You know, all the Canadian boys close to the heart, right?
Of course, yeah.
So you're big. You're a big hockey player.
Yeah.
Like beer league or more? Or?
Yeah, beer league.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Both me and Michelle.
Oh, really?
Michelle actually just got back from. She played the World Masters games.
Oh wow!
And she was playing a Canadian team against like all these European teams and stuff like that, which is really cool. They won gold just before the pandemic blew up. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, we both play a ton, which is really fun. I never played growing up. I just kind of played at outdoor rinks and stuff like that. And then because I was too busy with music, and then later on when I didn't have a band, there was a period there I really kind of jumped back in and started playing hockey and playing at you know, like still men's league and stuff, but playing at a pretty good level, and then get into it and you start having fun, and then we start making it. You make a team with a bunch of your friends that are just their skill levels are all over the map, you know, like we got guys that are just unreal and top 10 in our league, in our whole league in scoring, and then we got people who can't skate that well and stuff. And it's just fun because we're all friends, and it's fun to be able to play with like your buddies from all walks of life, right?
You play goalie, don't you?
I was way better goalie than I am a forward, but I've been playing forward for a long time, just so me and Michelle can play like on the same line or play together and stuff, which is fun.
You play mixed league then, I assume?
Just men's league.
Oh, nice. Michelle, she tears you up then? She fucking skates circles around you? What's good?
She's super good. She is really, really good. She can skate like crazy. She's excellent.
Not to get too personal, you guys ever have any plans for, you know, a family in the future or anything? Or we play it day by day? Or
kind of. The thing with us is we're so busy. She's, you know, running her business and stuff like that, that she's a very busy person. And like me, I've got like 20 things on the go at all times, the band and like, you know, the side business, cinematography, and work is crazy. And it's just like, man, like I'm always taking on more and more things. I start a YouTube channel for my car and you know, that's going pretty good. And just like so many dumb things. I just like, we have so many interests and so many things that are cool that we do too much. We're never opposed to it. We've always said that we'd be fine if we did have kids, but we just kind of, life hasn't slowed down for us yet to be able to kind of really do that.
How old are you, Brad?
I am 37.
Oh, you got tons of time to have kids. I don't plan on having kids till I'm like 95 or something like that.
yeah, totally. But I mean, it is good to you know, have a stable foundation so that if that possibility comes up, then, you know, like financially or like we've got a good foundation so that that option's open to us.
Oh, exactly. Like I tell my dad, I'm like, Dad, at this age, you had 3 kids. The fuck, man. I could barely handle anything. Like, fuck that.
Well, it changes your priorities in a hurry, right?
Exactly. You do have one child outside, though. I see you drove here.
My Challenger,
Yeah, so you started the YouTube channel for that.
Yeah.
What's that called? Did we plug it?
Track Pack RT is my channel. Basically, just my car is 09 Challenger that I bought brand new back in 2009. It's an RT, so it's got a 5.7 liter Hemi. It's just kind of like their mid-level. It's not even their, at the time, the 6.1 liter Hemi was their top of the line. But they were asking like crazy premiums for it. They were trying to gouge you, so I didn't even bother at the time. I just got that. And now, of course, they came out with the 6.4 liter Hemi, the 392, and then they came out with the Hellcat, the 6.2 liter supercharged Hemi, and then they came out with the Demon, which is an even crazier version of that same engine. But the cool thing about having the 5.7 Hemi is a lot of people sleep on it is, sorry, I don't know how big a car audience you've got on this thing, but it's cool because it's a great platform that you can get a lot. It's got a lot of potential with very little money sunk into it, and just a few modifications. You can be putting out some really serious power out of it, which is really cool.
What got you into? Because I've seen you post like you've taken out into tracks and done the quarter mile and everything. Haven't you not? Like
I've been racing since I was probably your age.
Yeah, how'd that start then?
I don't know. I've always liked cars. My good friend when I was young, I actually ended up buying this car off him, and I still have it, an 81 Firebird Trans Am. So it's like a Smokey and the Bandit style Trans Am. And I saw that car and I was like, that is the coolest freaking car I've ever seen. I grew up just me, my mom, and my sister, right? So with us, it was just kind of like my mom had like a F-150 or something. There's never any cool cars around. I never had like that influence. But as soon as I saw that car, I was like, I didn't even totally 100% realize how many really cool cars there were. And that just like sparked my interest right away because it was just way too cool. And then it just kind of led to a lifelong thing.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Dream car then?
Man, that's tough. I really love the Challengers are amazing. The Hellcats are unreal. They're so cool. A 700, the new ones have 717 horsepower, supercharged Hemi. That's crazy. Like, it's just crazy. They're so unbelievably cool. That's probably my dream car. But at the same time, I've got like such a soft spot for the Firebirds and Trans Ams. I love the old Dodge muscle cars, but they're way more rare. You don't see them so much, and they're very expensive because they're more rare. So it's they're a little more out of reach, so they're not as realistic, but they're super cool. You can't help but have a soft spot for them when you see them.
Do you have like a racing story maybe where you like looked at a car and you're like, not a chance, buddy, then just maybe gets fucking smoked or something?
I don't know. The thing is, I've been racing so when I was right out of high school, I had a 97 Firebird and I could only afford the V6. But then later on, it came with like a 200 horsepower V6, and then I ended up putting a supercharger on it, which was cool. And then I put nitrous on it, which was cool. So I've always kind of been a fan of like the underdog cars that like, so many people just look at like the factory specs and they're like, oh, well, that's that, and that's all it can be. And I love looking at something and saying, man, like there's so much potential to do so much cool stuff with this. So racing at the track, I'm used to seeing a lot of sleeper cars that you wouldn't think that are just insane, that people have put a lot of love into. And I've definitely got smoked by a lot of sleepers, but at the same time,
sounds like you wanted to be that sleeper car.
It's fun to even track down the guy afterwards. Everybody usually at a race event like that is usually really cool. So you can go and just talk about what they've done to their car and stuff like that. And it's pretty cool.
So what kind of content do you put on your YouTube channel there?
Modifying my car, really, just following. Basically, the thing, a lot of people right off the hop, because horsepower in recent years has gotten like crazy over the top insane. Like it's never been before. People like have said that the 5.7 Hemi is slow. And I mean, like compared to a 6.2 Hellcat, yeah, sure, that's got 700 horsepower. But at the same time, it's a great engine and a great platform. So I always thought it was annoying that people kind of shit on it a little bit. So I took that as an opportunity to show that with very little money spent and a few things put into it, you can make that car just a blast to drive and drastically faster for very little investment, making it a very cool car to drive.
So we're gonna link obviously everything in the description. Also, have you like what's a dream shoot? And then have you done a shoot with like racing it or anything? Is that like a a dream music video or any type of shoot for you? And what's a dream bucket list shoot even for you?
I guess it depends. I think it would just be a great bucket list shoot to do with like a really big crew and a really big budget.
Mm-hmm.
Music videos, musicians are always broke, man.
Oh yeah,
right. Even at a major label level, musicians are broke.
Mm-hmm.
They depend on their level or their label a lot of times to front them the money for that, or factor and stuff like that. So like budgets are hard to come by. So even just having a really big budget to shoot a music video with would be just wicked. Like, I mean, look at a lot of the rap videos and stuff, like those guys drop like just crazy money on these videos and they don't even care about them that much. But like some of the cool stuff that they're able to do just with that kind of budget is just, it would be great even just to have a crazy budget, just to have as many lights as I want that I could pick and choose, and any set that I could pick to either build or, I mean, that's wicked. Yeah. I think it would be fun to do more stuff outside of the metal genre. Mm-hmm. Metal is obviously my heart and soul, but I like the idea of doing different stuff, different genres, and maybe going for some different moods and feels and different images and looks. I mean, that stuff interests me too.
What is your personal playlist look like on your phone even?
Looking at stuff like, I mean, I'm a real sucker for a lot of deathcore. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't help it. I love metalcore, but metalcore is a bad word, especially for a lot of like metal elitists. But I get that too, because sometimes it gets so watered down that there's a lot of stuff that's like really whiny or really like generic sounding kind of, but like there's still so much really, really good stuff out there. Mm-hmm. I'm a real sucker for it. I'm a real sucker for anything that's like really well written. Mm-hmm. Guys that are really good songwriters and can really convey a feel and mood. Mm-hmm. Like I love Thy Art Is Murder. I think they're amazing. Yeah. The new Fit for an Autopsy record was really, really good. I really dug that. Mm-hmm. Even stuff like Polaris had I've
heard of Polaris.
Yeah, they've had a few songs off their last record that were just unreal. Unearth has a few like just killer tracks. Mm-hmm. Knocked Loose.
Oh yeah.
Okay, if I could say one band that like has really piqued my interest and attention, is Knocked Loose for me, I guess, just because that high pitched like really angry scream. I mean, that's kind of in my wheelhouse a little bit anyway, but like they've just got a really good feel, and it's just like almost like straight up hardcore. They're bringing up and making it fresh again, and it's I don't know, man. Every riff and every song makes me just want to punch stuff, and that passes my litmus test. You know what I mean?
No, I definitely know what you mean. That's why I kind of like, I'm always pissed at myself. I'm so like such a little bitch when it comes to metal, just like so picky and stuff. That's why I told you that one time when I was hammered, I'm like, I love the screaming and clean singing. I want to break down. And it's funny because the one band I'm actually not a prog metal fan whatsoever. I don't diss it. It's just not my thing. But I recently began into Dance Gavin Dance or whatever.
There's Jeff and Matt's favorite band.
They're so good, actually.
They're excellent musicians. Mm-hmm. Like that's partially why Jeff loves them so much, because musically they're very complicated. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, they're so random, and I know that Jeff loves that. He's got like such a personality like that. Mm-hmm. They're hit and miss for me. I love a couple songs that are like definitely regulars on my playlist that I freaking love. Like Carve is one of their songs that is just unreal. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there's other songs and there's that anytime it comes up, I skip it immediately.
100% agree. And the thing I have to give them props for, what really drug me into them, is their last single they did for their last album they just released, Strawberry Wake. I was like, oh, I've seen this. Yeah, sure. I clicked it. The music video was hilarious.
Their music videos are awesome.
So I started to like digging the music video. I'm like, oh my god, their personality is fucking hilarious.
Yeah,
so
man,
that really drove me into it because the music videos, I was like, this is fucking funny.
They do a really good job with their music videos.
Yeah, they do an awesome job.
Yeah, man. I kind of feel you the same way with progressive metal. I feel like that's a trendy thing in metal a little bit, just because a lot of metalheads associate more notes and more parts with better, and more complicated is better. And sometimes it is, but at the same time, I've progressive can get a little bit stuffy where they're using that as an excuse to play parts too many times, or like they kind of water down the coolest parts of their song by trying to drag it out a little bit.
Yep.
Where I think when you hear a progressive metal band that just blows your mind, you'll find that it's because their writing is really, really excellent, and they use their different complex song ideas and stuff like that to really drive the song in a cool direction and take you in a really cool place, rather than just like, hey, let's do a lot of parts and drag them out just because I like this riff. And it's, like it's, I think there's a little bit of that with prog metal right now, but at the same time, when you hear a band that really gets it, it catches your ear because it's like, that is really, really cool.
Well, sometimes I really like just simple, like for example, Black Friday. I'm not saying you guys' stuff is simple, but it's not like you guys are the most, technical guitar work out there. I also got to give a big nod to Born for Tomorrow. They opened for you guys before that, the pre-party kickoff. They were fucking awesome. And, they're just, their guitar work's not that technical either, right? I agree with you. Sometimes you don't need that technical work to show how good songwriting. Look at Nirvana, for fuck's sakes.
Yeah.
Easiest band to play in the world. Like, well, not actually,
but they're up there for sure. But at the same time, like, Kurt really gets melody. His vocal melody is almost like another instrument, and a lot of his melodies that he sings are very diminished. And he picks notes that he sings. They're not common, and they are because you've sung the songs a million times, but like they convey a really cool feel that, you don't really realize his voice is what melody you pick to sing is kind of an instrument. It's almost like a lead line on guitar too, right? So a lot of thought in going into like what feel you're going for. He didn't necessarily know what he was doing, if it was diminished or what he was doing, but at the same time, he had that ear that he just instinctively knew, right? So, I mean, there's a lot to be said. Music, first and foremost, is always about feeling, invoking a feeling, generally. So if you can do that in a very cool, artistic, and unique way, you're gonna have cool music and be a super cool band, no matter what style you play, really.
Honestly, Brad, we fucking touched on a lot of topics today, man. Seriously hit everything that I really wanted to and more.
Yep.
So now I get to give you the big red carpet. That camera. Tell everyone what you got going on. What do you have coming up? Do all your plugs right now. Like anything you want anyone to hear.
I'd say just stay posted to Black Friday. You can look us up on Facebook. You can look us up online. We have our website that's still up, but my God, it needs to be updated. But all our links to our socials is still on there. So blackfridaymetal.com. Find us on Spotify. We are clearing up our Spotify. For the longest time, we had a real problem with Spotify joining our stuff in with other bands of random genres. That drove me insane. So I finally got Darker Days separated to its own thing. But around August, our first record is going to be separated. We will be our own thing. So fear not. Look us up on Spotify, everything. Check us out. Like I say, Black Friday Metal, you can find all our socials on there.
Well, seriously, thanks again, Brad. I appreciate it. And everyone stay tuned. And also, I'm so fucking excited for that Chloe song, man. Seriously, like, I'm going to say a million times. I'm going to say it more. I can't fucking wait. But seriously, thank you again, Brad. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it, man. And I appreciate the support over the years. You've been super cool to us, and I appreciate that.
Also, real quick, this guy was a good wingman. Brought this just Tinder, very nice lady, to the bar the one night. And I'm just rocking out. And Brad just gives me a fat shout out on stage. Shout out to Damien there. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. So thanks for helping a guy get it in.
No problem, man. Whatever I could do, buddy.